Flaster Greenberg presents New Jersey's Site Remediation Reform Act, a practical approach. This program was recorded November 18, 2009 at Flaster Greenberg's Conference Center in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. In this segment, protection during the 3-year audit period, conflicts of interest between the LSRP and the client. Presenting this portion of the program, Mitchell Kisner, a shareholder with Flaster Greenberg.
I'm going to start by simply picking up on something that Donna said before. This statute is fine for the well-funded. If you have the money to engage the consultant and you can pay and have all the deadlines met, it's a great statute because there's people now to get it done. The awful thing was where you had a site, you had the funds, but the state simply wasn't acting in a speedy manner. This statute solves that difficulty because you'll have your own private consultant handling that. But what I'm concerned about in our office, we represent a lot of gas station owners, small heating oil companies, companies that don't have the well-funded aspect of those other clients who I was speaking about. So my concern is, how are these people going to be paying $8,000, $10,000 fines? Yes, the state says that if you have another suit pending against an insurance company or a responsible party, they have the discretion to take it into account. But I've had Spill Act cases, and our office has had Spill Act cases that go on for years, 8, 9. We had one case for 19 years, very honestly. And how much patience is the DEP going to have in that circumstance? And that's a concern of mine. Does this statute work for the average company or the smaller company, the average individual, the ones who had a convenience store or was a tenant in who owned a dry cleaners? They're going to have difficulties under this statute. Now, with the buyer and the seller, this statute is based on laws that were passed in Massachusetts and Connecticut. So while there is no experience yet here, there is experience with this statute or very similar statutes in other states. And that experience has showed that about 15% of the cases where there's an RAO, the state comes in and either rescinds or modifies the RAO. So you know that 15%, and that's over the course of many years that those statutes have been in effect. In the beginning, I'm thinking it's going to be substantially more than 15%. So what do you do to protect yourself? If you purchase a piece of property that's subject to an RAO, what you do is 3 things. First of all, this statute in a number of respects helps the insurance industry, but in an understandable way. It's going to promote the use of pollution liability policies, which as of now are not frequently written. They're on a claims-made basis. You typically buy them and they last for 7 years or 10 years. I've seen some for 7 and some for 10. There's AIG is a leading carrier in that. There's others also who issue it. There's about 5 carriers. You can tailor-make the policy to cover your situation. As an example, if you want to cover personal injury claims because of a contamination event, you could put it in there. You don't want it, you want to save and not have that, you could take it out. So these policies are very tailored to what you want. And one thing that you want is if the state comes in and it opens up an RAO, you want to know that there's protection. And this PLL policy, pollution liability policy, I think is the best means of doing it. There is a deductible. Typically, there's a $100,000, $50,000 deductible. Maybe when you buy it, you can escrow the deductible. But you know that that's all that you're going to be paying for is that deductible. If you don't buy the policy, and after all, these policies have an expense associated with it, they're usually at least $100,000, but it's all individual. When you buy, get a personal guarantee from the seller that if the state opens this up, he or the company is responsible. You may want to escrow the money. You have some sort of an understanding that if they come in, maybe it'll cost another $150,000. Obviously, I'm just making up numbers now as we speak. So you have an estimate, which is really, it's a rough estimate because who knows what the DEP is going to say, and who knows what the expense of doing what they say is going to be when they open up an RAO. So, but you have to come up with some kind of a number. So you can escrow, and you can combine the escrow with the personal guarantee. But you see here why the easiest way is the use of the insurance policy if it's something that's affordable. Another subject that I'd like to discuss now is the conflict of interests. Now, you've seen, and the speakers have been speaking about the fact that there are going to be conflicts of interest between the consultant and the client. And the experience in those other states, Pat said he's expecting to be sued. Pat's an excellent consultant, so if he's expecting to be sued, there's going to be a lot of people out there who are expecting to be sued. And experience in those other states show that when there's a fee dispute, that's the prime basis for people to lodge complaints with these agents, with the DEP, based on an LSRP's performance. It's just like an attorney. Hate to say this, but when an attorney sues for his fees, very often he gets hit with a counter argument. Oh, well, you didn't do this. Well, that's going to sort of be similar, and the experience has shown it's going to be similar when there's a fee dispute. So there's built-in conflicts. The number one is the LSRP, his or her highest priority in the performance of professional services shall be the protection of public health and safety and the environment. That, as you've heard before, means that he is in essence a surrogate for the state. So you now have an LSRP who's not for you so much as he's for or she's for the state. The LSRP has certain obligations to report. And that's why, and this hasn't been said, when you do a due diligence on a site, you might not want to use, and there's excellent reasons not to use, an LSRP to do due diligence. Because an LSRP has to report things. When he goes on the site and pokes around and does an inspection, he has an obligation, because he's a surrogate for the state, he has an obligation to report things which are of immediate environmental concern. And there's a lot of things that are of immediate environmental concern. It doesn't mean you have to see the spill in action. If you see something that affects a receptor, that is of immediate environmental concern. If there's a danger of contamination going into a water body or something of that nature, that's an immediate environmental concern. The LSRP has to report that. So you have him on your site. If you want to introduce him to the property, yes, he's going to be speaking to you, but he's also going to be looking around. If he sees anything, he has that obligation to call it into the state. That causes a conflict. The LSRP must report discharges. I mean, I'm not saying that this ever happened before, but I imagine that some consultants, when they were on their client site, they were able to turn the other way. They didn't see that. Well, that's not going to be the case here, because they're all going to be concerned about no longer being LSRPs, being suspended or terminated. If they see something that is a discharge on a site that they're assigned to or have been engaged for, they have to report that, even if the owner of the site is not the responsible party. They just have an obligation. D, the LSRP is a cop when it comes to his client. If he says in a report that we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do this, and there's a deviation by the client in that, for example, it says in a report that the client's going to operate some kind of a system, treatment system, a pumping system, and that's going to be operated by a different company. And the LSRP finds out that that system is not operating. Well, he has an obligation to report his own client to the DEP. So that's a conflict. So you can see here where there can be a lot of friction in this whole relationship. The LSRP must report material facts and data to the NJDEP, which are different from what is in the LSRP's reports. Yeah, it's simple. If the LSRP gets, for example, gets a site history, or is told that this is the sampling that had gone on before you were here, and he puts that in his report, and then afterwards he finds out, no, the site history wasn't that, it was this, or there was other sampling that he didn't know of. Well, he has a problem now, or the client really has the problem. He has to report that. There are times that you may want to have an LSRP as your consultant just to deal with your own LSRP. I mean, hire a second LSRP who's on a level of an LSRP to advocate with your LSRP. And that was an example of the extra expense that I was talking about before. There are times you want to do that because you want to shake your LSRP to go with something, hopefully, and you want to show them this is not just you saying it, but another LSRP has said that. So it's something to keep in mind if you have the funds, that you sometimes want to engage a second LSRP to act as an advocate. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this program brought to you by Flaster Greenberg. For more information, call 856-661-1900 or visit flastergreenberg.com. This program was produced by Professional Podcasts in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, on the web at professionalpodcasts.com. For Flaster Greenberg, this is Steve Lubetkin. Thank you for joining us, and take good care.